G'day everyone, it's me, Simon Bartol. You may be wondering why I'm wearing this ridiculous hat. Well, I'm going to talk to you about golf. I've got my last chance power driver here. Thanks, Bruce Springsteen, little credit to you. Now, look, I'm going to get rid of this hat, but I do want to talk to you about golf. Golf's an interesting sport because when you start playing golf, you want to get better. It really sucks to be going 120 around a golf course. What do you do when you want to get better? Well, you get a coach, don't you? And you get better equipment, and eventually you do get better. What's this got to do with running? Well, absolutely nothing, other than running's, for some reason, a completely different kettle of fish. Because runners don't seem to understand this aspirational side to the sport. And I want to talk to you about that today because it's going to feed directly into whether you may or may not get injured. One of the things about running is that you really should get better as you move along the progression of as a runner. So, for example, when you start off, you may not have been running for many years. You might have been like me behind a computer. You might have put on some weight, and you want to be losing some weight and getting fitter. So that's what you do. You go into your running shoe store. You get your shoes. They put you in a particular shoe. Let's call it shoe X, and you go off and run for 6 months. What's going to happen? Well, you're going to probably lose some weight. You're going to get fitter. You'll probably get a bit faster. So that means when you go back to the running shoe store, you should actually be running in a different shoe, just like you'd buy a different set of golf clubs. But what often happens is you go to the running shoe store and they say, "Yes, sir, what can I do for you?" And you say, "Well, I'm running in a pair of Nike Pegasus 39s." And they say, "Excellent. Here's a pair of Nike Pegasus 40s. Proceed to the cash register." And they've done you a huge disservice because you've got better. You've lost weight. You're different. The shoe needs to be different. Now, people often ask me why you get injured when you run. And I have a stock standard answer for that. One of the biggest issues with why you might get injured. And that is because when you are a runner, you get up in the morning and you put on your running shorts. Well, I hope you put your running shorts on. You put your running shorts on, you put on your singlet or whatever else you want to wear. You put your running shoes on, you go out the front door and you turn right. And you always turn right. You never turn left. And you always run on the same track. I've seen this so many times. Imagine if you're living in New York, in Manhattan, huge city. Not a lot of choices for most people, so they have the same route they run on the same surface, with the same camber, in the same direction. And what happens then is you get what's called cumulative repetitive load. And your body's tissues hate cumulative repetitive load. So you've got to try to avoid it. And it's the simplest thing in the world to do. So if you run 4 times a week, turn right twice and turn left twice, because you're going to change everything. You're going to change the camber on the street. All sorts of different things will happen. There are some other strategies you can employ. It is a great idea to have more than one pair of shoes in your running shoe quiver. So the shoes actually take at least 24 hours to recover from a run, because they have what's called compression set to the material in the midsole, which means that the foams in the midsole don't fully return to where they should be for at least 24 hours. So it's a good idea to have a different pair of shoes in your quiver that you mix up. Guys, one of the single most important things you can do is mix up your terrain. So if you possibly can, get off road, get onto a little light trail. It doesn't have to be anything fancy. You don't have to go up a mountain. Just get onto a light trail. Try to get onto a different surface with different undulations, because this will really help you and your body. Even do a different activity. So I've worked a lot in Australian football and at a professional level, and those guys don't play footy until towards the end of the week. They do other stuff like play basketball, they do indoor soccer, they do a lot of sprinting, they do quite a bit of running, but they don't play a hell of a lot of football. And that's because we understand that mixing up the signal is quite important. And if ever there was a horrible design in athletic footwear, it's a football boot. That's another story. We'll talk about that at another time. All right, let's have a look at some other strategies that we're talking about. I said that when you are choosing a shoe and you've perhaps improved in terms of technique, you've lost a bit of weight, you've got faster, you need to match the shoe to it. So I've got 2 shoes here. These are both Vamasi shoes, okay? And they look, I guess you could say that at first glance, they don't look that much different. but they are in fact completely different. So they are the same size. So these are both a ladies size 7, but they're completely different because this shoe is called a Z70. And this is a shoe that's designed, I guess, for almost for a novice runner. So it's for someone who is maybe just starting out, who wants to take no risks. They may not have done a heck of a lot of running, and they're probably not running very far. So this is a shoe that's designed specifically for that person. The reason for that is because it has a bias of cushioning in the rear foot compared to the forefoot, where the cushioning is higher in the rear foot than the forefoot, because they're almost certainly going to be a rear foot striker. Beginner runners land on their heel. That's what they do. So this is a shoe that's designed for them. You can see that it's got this little bit of carbon rubber here. This is very high abrasion rubber. It's designed to deal with the impact of heel strike, and that's just one little feature of the shoe. You can see it's got quite a bit of rubber on the outsole. All right, it's got other features too, like it's got this external heel counter, but we'll talk about shoes in detail in another video. Let's fast forward. This shoe, this is called a Vamasi Z30. Now, there are a huge number of changes between this shoe and this shoe. Let's have a bit of a look at them. First of all, the drop on this shoe is 4 millimeters. The drop on this shoe is 6 millimeters. The drop simply means that the differential between the amount of foam under the heel to the amount of foam under the forefoot. So if you've got a 4 millimeter drop, you might, for example, let's make the arithmetic easy, you might have let's say 32 millimeters under the rear foot and 28 millimeters under the forefoot. The difference is 4 millimeters, that's the drop. So you've got an elevation of 4 millimeters, right? This shoe, on the other hand, has an elevation of 6 millimeters. What does that matter? Well, one of the great secrets of running, one of the ways you can go faster is to get more up onto your forefoot. As you get faster, you will move more to a forefoot strike pattern. And when you sprint, you'll definitely be on your forefoot. So what happens when you reduce the drop, when you go from, let's say, 8 to 4 millimeters, it tends to increase the forefoot bias of the shoe. So it means that you tend to get more up on your forefoot, and when you get more up on your forefoot, you develop more propulsion power, and that makes you go faster. Isn't that great? There are some other things that you can see about this shoe. Look at the outsole. It's got no rubber on the outsole at all. So this is something that has a very strong forefoot bias here. You can see it's actually a little bit wider in the forefoot as well here. This is called the base net of the forefoot. It is designed to provide that really strong forefoot platform to push off on. But it's completely different. One of the reasons it's got so little rubber here is that this shoe is about 50% lighter than this shoe. So this is a shoe that is designed to go fast. This is for somebody who's running sub 3 hour marathon times. So it's designed for people who can go very, very fast. Okay. So I think that's a couple of things for you to think about here. When we talk about injury, and I'm going to do another video on injury very soon, because we do need to take a deeper dive into that. But when we talk about injury, please think about changing your footwear. Please think about mixing up your input signal. That means running on a different surface. And please also think about what we call your tissue tolerance. It's a big word, but it simply means that you can't go out and bang the heck out of your tissues from day one. You will get injured. If you suddenly change what you're doing, you will get injured. The tissue has to slowly develop a tolerance to the load that's being put on it. So if you imagine your Achilles tendon, for example, a very common injury in runners, you can't just go from a shoe with an 8 millimeter drop to a shoe with 0 drop. It won't work. It's really likely to injure you because your Achilles tendon has not built the tolerance to deal with that really big change in tension on the Achilles tendon. We will dive into that more in another video, but for now, I really hope you've got something out of this. I really hope you understand a little bit about how we can use shoes to benefit you. I hope you learned a bit about golf as well. I don't know anything about golf. I'm a horrible golfer, but anyway, there's the analogy. Get yourself a running instructor and get yourself the right equipment for the moment. Get the right shoes and mix up your training. That's it. Bye for now. See you soon.